Hi, my name is Natalie Nixon. I am a creativity strategist and the president of Figure Eight Thinking. I'm also the author of The Creativity Leap. And today I'm really happy to be joined by Jeff Benjamin, who is a restaurateur and has done so much incredible work on the food and hospitality scene here in Philadelphia. Jeff, so great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I wanted you to share, you are one of the people I interviewed for the Creativity Leap. And as I'm just sharing out to a wide range of people, I want to highlight different ways that people from a range of sectors, thought leaders like yourself, how creativity shows up in your life and your work. And so my first question to you is, could you share a story about a time when you've made a creativity leap?
Yeah, and it's funny because when you interviewed me for the book, I remember telling you I wasn't a very creative person.
I remember that.
And so
Not so.
you forced me to be creative, which was a leap in and of itself.
Yes.
Because, I learned through working with you and through spending time with you that creativity takes on multiple different ways. And even in that conversation, we both realized that there were things I had done creatively that I didn't give credence to as being creative. So something as minor as is how we founded our very first restaurant, my partner and I, Mark Vetri, was a creativity leap in and of itself, because we were opening an Italian restaurant, which we knew to be Italian and true to the Italian theme, in a city steeped with Italian tradition, completely different than the Italian tradition that we opened in. And the leap was saying, hey, Philadelphia, here we are. We've got Italian food for you. And people coming in literally every day saying, this isn't Italian food. I don't know if you think you guys know what you're doing or not.
Wow. How did you respond to that response to your interpretation of Italian cuisine?
Well, we stayed the course. We spent a lot of time wondering if the customer base wanted to be educated or whether they just wanted to be on the right side of being right and saying, hey, these guys don't know what they're doing. And fortunately for us, there were many more people who said, well, tell us why you think you're Italian. Say, listen, Italy is a country just like America with very, very different ethnicities throughout its country, different pockets. And we spend our time in Northern Italy. And while many of the quote unquote Italian Philadelphia history was steeped in Southern Italy, we're home of tomato sauce and garlic, Northern Italy is home of slow braised meats and ragouts and long extruded pastas and actually Swiss and Austrian influences. So
that's right.
We spent the time learning from us, became lifelong friends of ours, and here we are 21 years later, still in operation.
What I like about that story is you've actually touched on two principles that I think really matter when we're talking about creativity. One is the steadfastness. You said you stuck through it, even when you started feeling and getting the resistance initially. And then the other piece is the curiosity that some of the few customers had when they were willing just to ask you, well, tell me more. Why are you saying this is Italian cuisine? I think that's so important.
Well, and it even forced us to become more educated ourselves. So we would spend 2 to 3 times a year going to Italy, learning more about the Italian culture and bringing it back with us. And each trip I learned something new, either about a winemaker, about a new kind of food trend that was happening, or even just a new way to eat the old food. I mean, if you think about, there was no such thing as food distribution hundreds of years ago. So everyone ate their local product and they drank it with the local product. And we tried to bring that feeling back. And there's nothing more satisfying in our business than when a customer gets up at the end of the night and said, this was better and different than I thought it was going to be. And
that's right. You delighted them beyond their expectations.
That's the hope.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. So let's transition to my next question, which is, when you look back on your life, on your career, who has been a mentor for Wonder for you?
Well, for Wonder, I have been blessed that my business partner is actually the person who's been the most wonderful person, because and
let's say his name again.
Mark Vetri.
Mark Vetri.
And the name of our company is the Vetri Restaurant Corp. And Mark is a world class and world acclaimed chef. who's very quick to point out that kind of where he ends, I start. And why I was able to say initially in my first meeting with you that I'm not creative is because he is. But it's not just creativity, because most chefs are creatives, or most successful chefs are creatives in the strict sense of the word. But his sense of wonderment is infectious to the point where I feel it in me in a way that I never thought I could, where he'll walk into, and here's a great story too, because we were never going to open more than one restaurant. We were always just going to have one restaurant. We were going to be comfortable. Both of us started to raise families. Both of us just wanted to, and we got offered this space up in North Broad Street in Philadelphia. And anyone who's watching this who's not from Philadelphia, it was a very undeveloped piece of the town. But the space at the time, and it's taken on such a new life since then. But the space was raw and it was pretty much free. It was a great deal, but it was empty. It was a parking garage. Where we were looking was, and Mark looked and said immediately, "Oh my goodness, I can picture the bar over here and the tables over here. And what if we break out these windows and the kitchen should be open?" And this was, before open kitchens were thinking like, "How do you see all that?" He goes, "Don't you see it? Don't you see it?" And it's like, if you didn't drink Mark's Kool-Aid, where would I be right now? So he has a sense of wonder in little everything he does. And what really gets me about him is, I always say, he doesn't go to work ever. He just goes to life.
I like that. He doesn't go to work. He goes to
married life and home life and work life the same. And so I try and emulate that.
That's awesome. That's a great story. It's a great example. But what about a mentor for rigor for you?
Yeah, so actually, oddly enough, it's someone you also interviewed for your book. Someone who's been, and I've been blessed because in my professional career, especially in Philadelphia, I have what I constantly refer to as my personal board of directors. And I have about 5 people who I meet with on a relatively regular basis. And they're not all together at the same time, but, one at a time. If I've got a specific issue at work or just a concern over something that's happening, even if it's a world concern, not a work concern, I call them. And in fact, prior to this Zoom call, I was on the phone with one of them for over an hour. Just how are we dealing with COVID? And but Michael Foreman, who is the chairman of FS Investments, has literally been a constant in my Philadelphia professional life since the week we opened Vetri. He walked in and was a customer. He was a partner at a law firm here in town at the time, and just happened to be walking by and stopped in. And I immediately was moved by his he was clearly always working, but almost similar to Mark, where it didn't matter because it blended with his life. But as I watched his career progress to where he is now the chairman and CEO of FS Investments, I have watched his rigor, not in work, but with how he handles his home life.
Say more about that.
To his home, hosting a dinner party where Mark and I would be cooking, and he'd be with a bunch of relatively high-powered people discussing whatever topic of the day, and his kids would walk in the door and everything would stop. Me, his sense of rigor and how he separates his day, and knew that the most important thing happening at that moment was that his daughter walked in the dining room, still never falters in business, is something I aspire to. Like, I would like to have that in life.
That's interesting. I like your point about a seamlessness of the rigor. Even in your answer, your example of Mark Vetri being your wonder mentor, there's this seamlessness where they carry it through in multiple touch points throughout their day. And I agree, that's something to really aspire to. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fun to watch because you don't have to create a deficit in one area of your life to be successful in another. If you're good at it, you can be successful at both. And those are 2 examples of people who kind of have that figured out.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Do you have any parting thoughts that you want to leave with us?
Wow, it's funny because I'm hopeful that these types of conversations will live long past this week and this month and this year. But whoever's watching this should also understand that the entire world has been forced to take a creativity leap over the past several months during the COVID crisis. And I think it'll be interesting. It'd be fun for me if you were to redo these interviews post-COVID to see who has pivoted their business and who has seen the upside. I just had a call yesterday with a lot of my colleagues from around the country. And the first question I asked them is, who's trying something new in their business that they think will continue long past COVID?
Right.
Looking forward to finding out a year from now how many of them are still doing that which they started this past couple months.
I love that query, and I'll take you up on that. I'd love to see what has shifted for a number of people. Thank you so much, Jeff. It's awesome.
My pleasure. Anytime. Talk to you soon.
Right. Hang on. Wait.